1 Samuel 17, 1 through 16 is what we're talking about today. 1 Samuel 17, 1 through 16. I'm on here. That's all I got control of. Everett, can you not hear? You may need another hearing device or a battery or something. All right, 1 Samuel, the 17th chapter, verses 1 through 16. All right, we always start our class with an outline of the text. We don't stick with the outline, but I like for you to try to outline the text. Each one of these are nothing more than a summarization of each one of the sections within this particular section. So you read that section and you ask yourself the question, what is the main part? What is the main thought of this particular section? And you just write that down. And there's really no rights or wrongs as long as you are, as long as you kind of grasp that main thought. So who wants to give an outline? Anybody? All right, Kevin, go for it.
Face off.
Face off.
Fighting words.
Oh, fighting words.
Israel fears.
Israel fears. I thought he was going to alliterate there for a while.
4
4
sons.
sons.
And 40 days.
And 40 days. What about that third one? What's that third point?
Israel fears.
Israel fears. Okay, got it. Got it, fears. So he didn't start it off with an F, but he got the F in there. Good stuff. All right. Jane, you want to give yours? Very good, very good. I just have these points. Number 1, the war is on. Number 2, the warrior defies Israel. Number 3, the warrior frightens Israel. Number 4, the work of David. And then lastly, the willpower of Goliath. Okay, so we'll come back and we'll talk about those as we talk about our questions and things. Notice how I entitled this particular section, okay? I entitled the section, The Philistines and Goliath versus Israel and who? What's the title? It's right there on the top of your paper. And Saul. Folks, this is originally a battle between the Philistines and their champion, Goliath, and it should have been between Israel and Israel's champion, who should have been who? Saul. Folks, he's the king, isn't he? He's the dominant warrior of this particular group of individuals. It's the very reason he was installed as king, is to fight their battles for them. And yet, we don't find Saul fulfilling his duty, do we? Okay, and oftentimes we just think about, okay, it's Goliath versus who? David. No, it's not. It shouldn't have been. It should have been Goliath versus Saul. Saul, he chickened out. That's exactly right. But he shirked his duty and gave his duty to another, didn't he? Or he will as we go through the text, especially next week. Who gathered their armies together against Israel? Yeah, the Philistines. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle. Man, has war ever been fought on U.S. soil? When? Okay, the Civil War. We've got a little bit of a taste of it earlier than that, did we not? 9/11, folks. We got a taste of it. Okay? Didn't we? We had an attack on American soil. 9/11. Don't forget that. Okay? The reason I bring that one up is because the other wars are so distant from us that you and I don't have a comprehension of what war is. Now, people who have fought in the war and actually been in the battles and things, they understand it. But for the common man in the United States of America, when we say that the Philistines came to battle against the Israelites, we don't get that very well. And the reason I say that is because the battle that was going on is on Israelite territory. Okay? The Philistines have invaded the homeland of Israel, and they're fighting the battle right there in Israel's homeland of Palestine. Okay? And did this happen on a regular basis? Yeah, it was regular. When I see pictures of battle on television and buildings that have been destroyed and homes that have been destroyed and people that they're wounded and they're dead and people just they're going through the streets carrying out their everyday business and also trying to live in a war zone. That's pretty tough stuff. You know what? I'm always thankful that war is carried on somewhere else other than among us. And yet Israel fought battles on a regular basis in their own homeland. Okay, so don't forget how bad battle is. When the Bible says that the Philistines came together to do battle against Israel, it's a bad thing. Okay, it's not a pleasant thing whatsoever. Where did the Philistines gather themselves? Yeah, at the place called Soka. Okay, it's right in the very heart of Israel. Okay, right in the very middle of Israel itself. And if you get my notes, pull them up online, you can see where that particular city is when those notes are posted. To whom did this city belong? Yeah, and I note that, which belonged to Judah. Here is an invading army, are they not? They have come into Sukkah and they are in the very homeland of Judah of Israel. I don't know about you, but when the enemy comes into your territory, what are you supposed to do? Just give up? Folks, the battle's on. Okay, or at least it should be. Okay? Where do they pinch their tits? Yeah, very hard word to say, isn't it? Okay, they pitched their tents between Sukkah and Azekah. Okay, and in what valley did Saul and the men of Israel pitch their tents? Yeah, the valley of Elah. And Saul and his men were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah and set the battle in array against the Philistines. Folks, they were both what? Prepared for war, weren't they? Okay. The only thing I can even liken that unto as far as my feelings are concerned, I remember being in football and you go out and they, give that coin toss and one person would choose whether they want to receive the ball, the other choose the side that you wanted to defend, right? And then everybody lines up and there you are. I was a little lineman, so I'd be right there on that front row on a kickoff team or a receiving team. And you wouldn't believe the nerves that are there when you are about to go against that other team. You're just shaking inside, okay? Till that first hit, okay? You're just, just a bundle of nerves. Can you imagine being in battle? One side on one side, another side on the other, and you know that it's time to fight. I can't even imagine the feeling that you would get, okay? Knowing that a battle where you could lose your life literally is about to ensue. But that's what's about to transpire here. What was between the two armies? Only one thing. Just a valley, wasn't it? Just a valley. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. Battles were often fought in valleys. Okay? Often fought in valleys. The mountains would give you what? Protection. You could run down into the valley, fight, and then go back into the mountains for protection and regroup again, right? So valleys were fought in on a regular basis in Israel and around the world. What man came out of the camp of the Philistines? Yes, a champion named Goliath. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath. A champion. Wow, a champion of the Philistines named Goliath. What does that word champion mean? Anybody? What is it? Best in battle. Okay. A conqueror. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody look up how Strong defined it? I found it interesting how Strong defined it. A man. That's the way Strong defined it, simply as a man. Okay, a champion, a man. Okay. Brown Driver and Briggs says, a man, a champion, a great man. Calendarlich says, a man that is well known. Clark said, a champion is he properly who fights in the field, in camps. A man well skilled in arms, strong, brave, and patriotic. Okay, very, very interesting. How tall was Goliath? 9'6". Is that what the Bible says? Whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Okay, we have defined a cubit as how many inches? 18 inches. Now, that was not the way cubits were determined in the Old Testament. Okay? Anybody know how they were determined? Tip of the finger to the elbow. Okay? Now, if you, wouldn't you like to see how long that was on Goliath? A little bit bigger than it was on me. Okay? But typically everybody just says, oh, about 18 inches. Okay? So about 18 inches. So that would make him, if he's 6 cubits and a cubit is 18 inches, that makes him 9 feet tall, right? But there's also a what? A span. Now what's a span? Okay? It goes from the tip of the finger to the tip of the thumb. A span. Okay? That was what was a span. Most individuals say somewhere between 6 and 9 inches. Okay? So we'll just say, we'll take Goliath's span, right? About 9 inches. So make him how tall? 9'9". 2 of me. Okay? That's about what we're talking, okay? Almost 2 of me. Can you imagine another me standing on my shoulders and how tall that would be? Then I'd be something, okay? And then I could walk up to Tim and really talk to him, couldn't I? Okay? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be, I wouldn't be here preaching probably. I'd be retired somewhere from a ball team. That's a pretty tall guy, isn't it? 9'9", okay. What did he have on his head? Yeah, a helmet of brass. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head. And what was the weight of his coat of mail? It says 5,000 shekels of brass. Wow. And he was armed with a coat of mail. What is a coat of mail? Okay. Yeah, it's almost like fish scales, right? The way they're put together, okay, and they overlap one on another. But like Jim said, they're kind of it's made out of brass on this particular coat of mail, and they would drape all the way around the back and all the way to the front, usually down to about the mid part of the thigh. Some of them were shorter than that. Some would just be waist length, okay, but a protective coat of armor that he wore. It weighed how many shekels? 5,000. Folks, just the 5,000 shekels makes me think it's heavy, I don't know how they come about all these. Barnes says 157 pounds. Clark said 156.4 pounds. I don't know where he got it that accurate. Calendarlich says 148 pounds. Now guys, has anybody ever done any backpacking? Done some backpacking? Okay. Does anybody know what the scale is? How much weight you should carry relative to your body weight when you go out in the woods? 1/4 is the safe weight. Okay, 1/4. All right, so if I weigh 160 pounds, then I can carry safely 40 pounds. Okay, safely. That's where you don't hurt yourself. All right. When I was at the children's home, some of the kids, they couldn't always carry that much weight on their back, even though, we may have a 200-pound young guy, but he's never done anything physical. So you'd have to lighten him up, and we as the leaders would carry a little bit more weight. I have carried up anywhere up to 60 to 65 pounds over the course of a weekend. Okay. Let me tell you something. You carry that very long, that is a lot of weight, okay? And we're not talking about 50 or 60, 70 pounds. We're talking about 150, 160 pounds this man had draped over him that was just regular clothing going out into the field of battle. How much do y'all have to carry sometimes? Have you ever had to carry weight out in the field? How much? 70, 80 pounds? That's what I thought for military. I thought it was pretty heavy. Gets kind of tough, doesn't it? Not for a strapper, though. You didn't have what? You didn't have back braces? Oh yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's heavy. You just go try to pick up 150 pounds this afternoon. Okay. In fact, just throw it over your shoulder and carry it for a couple of minutes. Okay, and you'll get some idea of what this man was carrying. He was a strong man. What were on his legs? Yes, greaves of brass. What in the world is a greave? Okay, Jim? Okay, yes, kind of a shin guard, okay? So he's girded down to here with his coat of mail, and then from about the knee down was his greaves, his shin guards, and they also were made of brass. We're not told exactly how much they weighed, but they would have to weigh somewhat. What was between his shoulders? Yes, a target of brass between his shoulders. What in the world is a target? Target of brass between a javelin, okay? Beverly said a javelin. Anybody else? Jim? Okay, yeah. It's even Strong defines it properly as something to strike with. Okay, Brown, Driver, and Briggs, javelin, a short sword, a dart. It was a smaller sword that was flung over the shoulder and near the quiver of arrows when carrying a bow. Okay, so when we think of target, a different word comes to our mind, right? It was what he used to throw at a what? At a target. Okay, so but a smaller sword that he had thrown, or even darts or something that was thrown over one of his shoulders. What was the staff of his spear made like unto? Yes, a weaver's beam. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. It was a solid piece of wood like a pole found on a weaver's shuttle. Okay, weaver's shuttles pretty big. Yeah, guys, they're pretty big pieces of furniture, are they not? And so here's this one piece that went from one end to the other, and his spear was that long. It was just a huge piece of wood. And mounted on the top of that was a what? A spearhead. And how much did the head of that spear weigh? 600 shekels of iron. Anybody look that up? Yeah, Tim's got 15. I got 16 to 17. Wow, guys. That's a lot of weight on the top of a spear, isn't it? This little boy right here couldn't throw it to the door. Okay? That's a heavy spear. And, that's why you need an armor bearer. Yeah, he'd need two. Wow. And what went before him, or was there anything going before him in this battle? Yeah, his armor bearer. And one bearing a shield went before him. A shield, a large shield. A shield, large shield, a buckler. Okay. Was he well armed? Wouldn't you like to have seen the shield that was needed to protect Goliath? I don't know that I would want to be his armor bearer. You know what? I just don't know that. Goliath said, "Choose you a blank for you and let him come down to me." A man. Wow, a man. The word man indicates a person who is courageous, mature, knowledgeable, skilled, and patriotic. A person who trusts God and is willing to fight the opposition. Choose you a man. That's what Goliath said. Who's at the field of battle that day, folks? Saul is at the field of battle, is he not? And old Goliath is standing out there. Give me a man. Nobody shows. Who else is at the field of battle? David's brothers. Remember Eliab? Remember what Samuel said when he first saw Eliab? This is he. This has got to be the man. God said, now, wait a minute, Samuel. Don't look on his countenance, nor what? The height of his stature. Folks, when Samuel saw Eliab, what did he see? He saw a good-looking, strong, tall, strapping fellow. He was at the field of battle. Goliath is hollering out, "Give me a man!" Guess what? There are no men. There are no men on the field of battle that day. Ezekiel 22 verse 30, folks, there are times when God is looking for a man. Did you know that? "And I sought for a man among them that should make up the hedge and stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it. But," God says, "I found none." We live in a weird society, don't we? Is it okay to be a man today? First of all, it's racist. I mean, it's prejudiced, right? You know. "Oh, you want to be a man?" Yeah, I want to be a man. That's what I want to be. I want to be a man who, if there is a Goliath standing out in the battlefield who is calling for a man, I want to raise my hand and say, "Guess what? Here I am." I don't want to back down from that man. Do you? And yet we live in a society today that if you say you're a man, it's almost like you're pronouncing a curse on yourself. You know what? We don't even train boys to be men anymore. Do we? What was a man needed to do on this particular occasion, folks? Fight! That's what he was needed to do, and he needed to know how to fight, didn't he? And he needed to be courageous enough that it didn't matter how tall, how big, how much armor Goliath had on. This man was willing to what? Stand against the enemy. We need men today. Mamas, train your boys. Daddies, train your boys to be men. Because God says, "I'm looking for a what? A man." That's what He wants. Don't know where Jonathan is. The text doesn't say anything about Jonathan right now. He was often separated from his father, wasn't he? But he may have been there. Yep. But now we find at the end of the battle, is Jonathan around? If you keep reading through the end of the chapter, Jonathan's pretty near this battle. It could very well be that Jonathan wasn't stepping up to the plate on this particular occasion either, even though he'd manifested some pretty great faith in times past. Wow, give me a man. Guys, there's nothing wrong with being a man. Does a man mean that you're unkind? Does being a man mean that you can't use tact and communicate with people? Does being a man mean that you're abusive and beat up on women and take advantage of? That's not what that means. That's not a man. A A man is a person who is courageous and strong and mature and skilled to fight the battles against the adversaries. And he's not scared to do that, to protect his home, to protect his people, to protect himself if need be. That's what a man is. And God wants us to be men. You know, even in the New Testament, quit yourselves like men. You see, there's nothing wrong with being a man. Don't let our society teach us anything different than that. Yes.
Well, how does Goliath's height and all compare to Saul's? How much larger was he than Saul?
We're never given all we know is that a Jew was around, a normal Jew would have been about 5 feet. Okay, that was kind of the average height, 5 feet, 5'2", 5'3", somewhere in there. My mom was I'm 5'7", so I'm not a big guy, but a normal Jew's a little bit shorter than I. And the text says that Saul stood what? Head and shoulders above the normal person. So you tack what? About a foot maybe, 8 inches to a foot on top of that. So he's what? 5'8", 5'9", maybe 6 feet tall, right? So here's a 6-footer going against a 9'9"er. Okay? That's a big difference, isn't it, Jeannie? What's that? Oh, yes. Yes, answer me like a man. Yeah. Folks, God created men and women, and He created men to be men. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So here, Goliath is calling out for a man, and he also sets the terms of the battle, does he not? What are the terms of the battle? What are the conditions? What does he say? Winner take all. Okay? If your man beats me, we become your servants. If I beat your man, you become our servants. Wow. There's no in-between ground, is there? And the Philistines said, I blank the armies of Israel this day. I defy. Strong says that means to pull off, to expose, to defame. Brown, Driver, and Briggs, to reproach, to taunt, to blaspheme, to rail, to upbraid. Think about that. I defy the armies of Israel this day, folks. I'm going to uncover the armies of Israel. You say you trust in God, right? Let's see how much trust you have. I'll expose your distrust. You say you're strong and courageous. I will do what? I will expose your fear and your dismay. Wow. I defy the armies of Israel. Ooh-wee. Give me a blank that we may blank together. A man that we may fight together. Twice he's called for a who? Called for a man. How'd you like to be Saul hearing that? Give me a man. Give me a man. All I want is a what? Just one man. That's all I want. Just one man. How did Saul and Israel react to the cry of the Philistine? And Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines. They were dismayed and greatly afraid. Dismayed. Anybody look that word up? They were dismayed. See, if I don't put it down as a question, you don't look it up. To prostrate, to break down by confusion or fear, to be shattered, to be broken, to be afraid, to be scared. Folks, it indicates that they literally what? Fell on their faces rather than rise up and go to the field of battle. Scared to death. Absolutely. Greatly afraid. That little word greatly is 2 words in the Hebrew. The little word greatly means vehemently. It stresses the great measure of fear in the hearts of the Israelites, including Saul. It means exceeding much, in abundance, muchness. They were abundantly afraid. Man, There's an army that you need to fear, isn't it? How many men were challenging Israel? One. One man struck terror into an entire army. Folks, they couldn't find one. The only question that I'd like to ask one day is this: how many were there? You know it? 10,000? 20,000? Even 5,000? And not one man? It'd be a shame to have a congregation of even 80 and you can't find a man. You know that? And sometimes you can't find a man to pray. Can't find a man to lead singing. Can't find a man to extend the invitation. Can't find a man to wait on the table. Can't find a man. Not to battle Goliath, to do the easy stuff. Sad, isn't it? Give me a man, God says. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because this isn't going to go on for just a short period of time, is it? Okay? It's going to go on for quite a while. Wow. Whose son was David? Number 24. Yes, Jesse, the Ephraimite or Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah. How many sons did Jesse have? 8 sons. Yeah, we're learning a lot about David right here. We're getting the introduction, the background to him. Okay? Jesse was an old man in the days of Saul. True. And the man went among the men for an old man in the days of Saul. He had 8 sons. He was an old man now. Who's the youngest? David. Folks, does it take a while to have 8 children? If you have one a year, it's going to take you at least 8 years, right? And the wife is praying it's not one a year. Okay? But all of his sons were what now? They're all grown, aren't they? Okay, they're all grown. So he's become an older man, a very well-respected man in the nation of Israel. 3 of his sons followed Saul. True or false? True. Which 3? Yes, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah. Are all 3 of these guys important in the biblical narrative? Have we already seen them? Have we already seen them? Yeah. Remember when Samuel went to the house of Jesse, and these are the 3 that first come before Samuel, right? And all 3 of them, God says, don't want these guys. Okay? And it also went on through how many more? 4 more, right? Until they get to who? Get to little old David. Wow. True or false? David was the youngest son of Jesse. True. David also followed Saul in battle. False. False. And the 3 eldest followed Saul in battle. Only the 3 eldest. Why do you think that might have been the case? About how old did you have to be a man of war? Anybody know? 20 was the normal age for a man of war. Okay, 20 years old. So it may have been that the rest of the sons weren't 20. I doubt that, don't you? The reason I doubt that is because David is going to step up and fight, is he not? Okay? And if there's, say, a year or 2 between each one, David would only be 10 or 11 years old. Okay? He's older than that on this particular occasion. Why just these 3? Well, it could have been a law in Israel that only so many sons can be dedicated from one family to go to a battle. Okay? That would preserve what? Have to preserve the family. Yep, we have that kind of a law now, don't we? Okay, so, but at least those 3 were there. Instead of being with Saul, where was David? Yeah, he's back with the sheep where he's supposed to be, isn't he? That's where he's supposed to be. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. True or false? He's learning something. He was learning something. David. He was learning something. Hey, man. Folks, you know what we need to remember is regardless of where God places us, guess what? He's training us. May not be where we want to be. May not be where we like to be. But guess what? God puts us in those little situations, and guess what He can do? He can develop and train us for what's better, can He? You know? Where would you want to be? Would you rather be a shepherd with the sheep, or would you rather be a warrior on the battlefield? If you're a man, you want to be on the battlefield. Okay? Had a bunch of shepherds out there that day that wouldn't fight, didn't they? But see, it could have been in the heart of David. Man, I'd love to be at the battle. You know, anybody ever watched the movie The Patriot? Them little guys were ready to do battle, weren't they? Okay? And yet they weren't old enough. Their dad didn't want them out there yet. When I turn 18, I'm going. Okay? But guess what? You can learn where you are. And folks, during David's time as a shepherd, God was training him for this day, this battle that he's about to fight. You know what? Unbelievable. How often did the Philistine draw near to challenge the Israelite to battle? Day and night for 40 days. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. Folks, I'm talking about 80 times this man stood before Israel challenging them. 80 times. That's 80 of my lessons a year that they suffered through. You know that? Can you imagine? You know, you look up in the morning and somebody's screaming at you. And who is it? It's old Goliath. Give me a man. I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man to fight with me. And he stands out there 15, 20, 30 minutes. Goes back to his camp. 3 or 4 o'clock, guess what? He's right back out there again. 40 days of that. It's unbelievable. You would think so, wouldn't you? What you find is they had, etiquette in warfare that they really stuck to back then. And it used to be, it wasn't until they came up with guerrilla-type warfare tactics and things, but they used to have some pretty clear battle lines, and apparently they had set the battle lines, and this is it, Folks, we learned some some lessons about the opposition. The opposition is not fearful of the fight. You know that? The opposition is not fearful. Goliath wasn't scared at all. And our oppositions in our world today, our Goliaths, they're not scared. We must prepare ourselves for the fight. We must trust God that it will defend us against the enemy when he presents himself. And we must be ready to answer the first call of the enemy to battle. Not the 90th or the 100th, the first call. Wouldn't it have been wonderful if Saul had consulted his God and said, God, do you want me to go to battle? And God says, yes, go to battle. He would have whooped that man in a moment. And where is he? Prostrate, shaking in his sandals, back in the camp, isn't he? Larry?
The Israelites' attitude was anybody but me.
Anybody but me. That's exactly right. And, we get on these guys, but guys, are we ever scared to death to do something? Somebody says something to you at work. I ain't saying nothing to him. We're just shaking our boots. And he's not even Goliath, is he? Jim? Oh yeah. There's incentives being given. By who? That's what's even sadder. Saul. All right, guys. Next week it's no longer Israel versus Goliath. It's guess who? David versus Goliath.